U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. She's become a bridge builder both in New Hampshire and in Washington, but in a Senate split 50-50. Can she continue to navigate the partisan divide? Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR on this Sunday morning. I'm Ed Harding, along with News 75's political reporter Janet Wu. It's great to have you with us. Omicron cases are falling. Some mask mandates are ending. That's all good news, and soon we hope to be a lot closer together than we are this morning. Our guest this morning is Senator Jeanne Shaheen, and she joins us from Dover, New Hampshire, by the way. She is the Granite State senior senator, first taking office in 2009. Senator, one day we hope you can be back here in the studio with us too, but it's great to have you with us this morning. Thank you for your time.
Well, it's nice to be with you. Hopefully we'll be in person soon.
Right.
Fingers crossed. Thank you for joining us. You just got back from Ukraine a few weeks ago. This is a big concern right now for those of us who are in the military, traveling or living in Europe, or working for companies doing business with Russia. Do you support the use of military force if necessary, or are you just hoping for economic sanctions at the most?
Well, I think we're doing a number of things, and I applaud the Biden administration for its robust diplomatic effort. They have since late fall of last year, they have been working with our allies in Europe to build unified support in opposition to what Vladimir Putin is doing. That's going to be very important because while sanctions from the United States would hurt Russia, sanctions from Europe and the United States would have a much greater effect. And so we also are providing support to the Ukrainians, military assistance, and the president has just recently ordered troops to the eastern border of Ukraine, where we know we have our NATO allies and other European allies who are very worried about what Putin is doing and the potential to invade Ukraine. So it's a very dangerous situation. Americans have been urged to leave the country, and we don't know yet what Vladimir Putin is going to do, but it doesn't look good.
But you're hoping no military intervention is necessary. And you did talk about sanctions, but that would also have a severe impact on the world economy, no?
Well, it would have some collateral impact on Europe and the United States, but we've got to hold Russia accountable and Putin accountable in some way for his threatening activities and for his efforts to destabilize the world order that's really been in place since the end of World War II. And, you know, we've seen this activity from Putin before. He went into Georgia in 2008. Of course, he took Crimea in 2014, and there's been fighting in the western part of Ukraine since 2014. Ukrainians have lost 14,000 people in that fight, and it continues to this day. So we have seen this kind of activity. We know this is what Putin's doing. And what's so ironic about it is that he says he's doing it because he's concerned about his border. He's concerned about the aggressive actions of NATO. But NATO is a defensive alliance. The aggressive actions are coming from Vladimir Putin and Russia. And the president has been very clear, we are not going to put soldiers on the ground in Ukraine. But our NATO allies are a different story. We have a responsibility to protect everyone who's part of NATO. It's a common responsibility. We saw that after the attacks on the United States after 9/11, that NATO countries went in to support us. So we need to work to make sure that we not only reassure our allies, but that Putin understands that we are acting in a way that is united, and we're going to stand up to his aggressive behavior, because if we don't, the question is what country is going to be next. We know that he's not going to stop here.
Senator Shaheen, I want to shift topics just a little bit. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell this week denounced firmly his own party, calling January 6th a violent insurrection. Yet he hasn't held Donald Trump responsible by name and place. So what do you make? What, if anything, do you make of this?
Well, I appreciated Mitch McConnell's standing up and saying that there was an election. It was decided in favor of Joe Biden, and that was an insurrection that took place on January 6th. But, it's unfortunate when courage, the baseline for courage is telling the facts about what happened to the American people. That shouldn't be the baseline for courage for politicians. We need to stand up and remind people that what happened on January 6th was a violent insurrection, an attempt to overthrow the government of the United States of America. And it's important for all of us to stand up and say that's what that was, and we can't ever let it happen again.
From the majority leader to the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi has had a change of heart, and she now thinks that tougher restrictions on stock trading by members of Congress are needed. Are you on board with this, and should it include certain family members like spouses and children?
I am on board. I am a co-sponsor of 2 of the Senate bills that would address this issue. And I think it certainly needs to include spouses. I think most of the requirements that we have for disclosure and financial agreements include immediate family members. So I think that's appropriate.
What about children, especially grown children, adult children?
I think that becomes a little more challenging and problematic because we can't determine what the dynamics are within families. And as we know, all families don't share all information and work together. But I think it's something that we've got to look at and make a determination.
President Biden is about to name his first Supreme Court nominee, and he promises that it will be a black woman. What are you hearing among your colleagues? Will he have any problems once he gets a nomination in front to get her confirmed?
I hope that members of the Judiciary Committee and people on both sides of the aisle are going to be open-minded and listen to who the president nominates, that there will be a hearing so people will have a chance to ask questions. And I personally think it's great that he's made a commitment to nominate a black woman, because we need more inclusion in our courts, just like we need more inclusion in our society.
Speaking of the Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade is under attack, and it's under attack in your own state, in New Hampshire. It's now illegal to get the procedure after 24 weeks, and an invasive ultrasound procedure is first required. So I got 2 questions. Will this be a major issue in this year's New Hampshire gubernatorial and U.S. Senate races? And do you think that this will be reversed anytime in the near future?
It's really troubling to me that in the live free or die state, that we're seeing this kind of legislation coming out of what has appearing to be a very right-wing legislature. And I'm disappointed that Governor Sununu has been unwilling to stand up to the legislature, that he's trying to have it both ways. The fact is, this legislature not only says we're going to outlaw abortion in New Hampshire after 24 weeks, but we're going to require every woman to get an ultrasound, whether it's medically necessary or not. And by the way, she has to pay for it.
Do you think this is going to be these are going to be central questions or central themes in the
do.
2 elections? And do you think this will change anytime soon?
Well, I hope it's going to change, because I hope we're going to change the people who we've elected, who understand that decisions about women's reproductive future should be made by women in conjunction with their families, with their doctors, with their healthcare providers, and it's not something for the legislature in New Hampshire or anywhere else to decide.
Senator, looking at the big field here, why haven't Democrats found anyone to run against Governor Sununu?
Well, it's still early. He just made a decision at the end of last year that he was going to run for re-election. When I ran in 1996, I didn't get into the race until April of the election year. So we have a lot of people in the Democratic Party in New Hampshire who are going to look at this race and who want to change the direction that Chris Sununu and the Republican legislature have been taking this state. We want to continue to address COVID. We want to make sure that we support families who can get health care when they need it, that we address women's reproductive rights, that we make sure that people get access to the federal dollars that are coming to the state, which are not being distributed as quickly and efficiently as they ought to be. So we have people who the state gave back $800,000 last year in money that was coming for food, because somebody decided that people in New Hampshire didn't need that food assistance. Well, we hear from a lot of people in New Hampshire in our office who are concerned about food assistance, who are food insecure, who need that help. And the Sununu administration is just not doing what he should be doing. And we've got a lot of Democrats who want to take that on.